My wife, Amy Louise Daniels, was born July 13th, 1964. She died on January the 6th, 2024. Amy was born with a gene, a BRCA1 gene. Women with a BRCA1 gene have a 87% likelihood that they're going to get breast cancer sometime, aggressive breast cancer at some time in their life. They have a 65% chance they're going to get ovarian cancer sometime in their life, which basically means they have about a 96% possibility they're going to get cancer. She was born that way. I met Amy on Match.com in 2010. She lived in Westfield, Indiana, right outside of Indianapolis. I lived here in Fort Wayne. And I actually looked in Fort Wayne. I was trying really hard to find that special girl in Fort Wayne. I couldn't find her. So I expanded my search to 100 miles. Now, Amy actually lived 120 miles away. But I'm glad that Match.com fudges their numbers just a little bit. So I met Amy. I sent her emails. She would respond. Elaborate emails, clearly way more sophisticated than I was. I'd do my best to try to respond, and she wouldn't answer. One day, I was at a card game with my buddies, and she sent me a wink. That's the way they did it back in 2010. I got a wink. And I looked up at the guys and I said, I know who I'm gonna marry. And they all looked at me like, you are nuts. And I thought, yes, I am, but I also know who I'm going to marry. So I kept contacting her and she still ran from me. And one day I said, I got all my confidence up and I said, okay, I sent an email and said, I'm gonna meet you at Ocean Air Restaurant, downtown Indianapolis on this date and this time. Will you be there? And she said yes. So I go to the dinner. There's two versions of this story. There's Amy's version and then there's my version. Her version is, she got out of the car, she approached me, and I was really aloof, and I said, hi, I'm Ron, we're glad to meet you. She was expecting some big hug. My version of the story, which is the true version of the story, is that I knew for a fact I was out of my league. There was no doubt. And when I saw her, I laid eyes on her, I go, oh my God, I'll do my best. So the maitre d' hit on her, gave her his card, actually, while I'm sitting there, said, if you ever need any fresh fish, the waiter, a male waiter, he's hitting on her. I'm going, oh my God. So I get a couple of glasses of wine in me and I get my confidence up and I go, okay, and I go through the dinner and everything's going good, the conversation's going good, and we get to the end and I said, would you like to take a walk with me? And she said, that's when I got her. Now, there's two versions of this story. One she tells her daughters, which is that nothing happened. And the other story is the real story we made out on the monument, on Indianapolis Monument, if you've ever been there. So we dated for 6 months. I was smitten from the beginning, at the week. I decided, I want to marry this girl. That's what I set out to do to begin with. I set out to marry her. That's the only reason I was on Match.com, was because I was going to find my soulmate. And I knew I found her. So I said, I don't want to go into this other than fully transparent. So I went to her and I said, honey, I got to tell you something. I said, I know this looks like a real successful business around me, and I know it looks like success, and I know this looks like, but I just want to make sure you understand something. Because, do I think it would be successful? Yes. It's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee. And she said, but you got to tell me that you don't know your person. So I went out and got the ring the next day. Actually, I got one of her daughters, but we got the ring the next day. We got married in Central Park. It was Amy, I, Veronica, the aficionado from Argentina, and Pedro, the photographer from Mexico. And we went around the park and we took pictures and we got married, and we were going to live happily ever after. We were going to be the next power couple. I knew it. I had her. Anybody that knew her knew that I must have something going on, because she was definitely the real person. Not just beauty outside, but inside, just a spectacular person. Well, she kept having female issues. She kept having like this heavy flow, this bloating. She had these terrible periods. Didn't know what it was. Well, she went and saw Dr. Rumsey here. I'm going to fast forward a minute to Dr. Rumsey. She went to saw Dr. Rumsey, and he did a hysterectomy. Initially, when she came to me, she said, hey, I think I'm going to do a part. I said, I don't know what's wrong, honey, but something's wrong. She says, you got to do this. You got to do it. You got to get you got to get that out of there. I don't know what it is. So after the procedure was done, Dr. Rumsey came, brought us to the room. He was talking, well, she wasn't there. She was in recovery. And he said, he kind of was taking his glove. He was kind of nervous. He's kind of like, and he said, okay, everything went just as planned. Everything's fine. Okay. Yeah. I'm like, okay, thank you very much. At night, I got a knock on the door. He made a house call. He came to our house. I didn't know what this stuff was at the time. I know lots about it now. I didn't know what it was at the time. He said, Amy has ovarian cancer. But the good news is that we could have got it early. So we need to find out. And I said to him, I said, so, what if you didn't? What if you didn't? He looked at me, and I remember this to this day. I can remember it like he's looking at me right now. He said, it's very ugly. Yay. So Amy's recovering from this hysterectomy. She's in pain. Of course, she's sleeping. I'm studying all night long, trying to figure this. This is after Dr. DiBernardo came in and, of course, consoled her. I'm studying all night long to figure this out. And I found out this was ugly stuff. I know a lot more about it now, and I know how ugly it is. So I said, I need to find the best doctor. So I went out. It was actually, they recommended an oncologist here. Amy actually loved the lady. And I said, honey, I got to find the best. I don't know if she's the best or not. We got to find the best. So I went and looked around, Google search, Cleveland Clinic. That's the closest place to me, 3.5 hours. So I called Cleveland Clinic. And I tell them of the situation. I'm selling my wife, because my wife is in perfect shape. She never drank. She didn't do anything wrong. She loved her God. She was yoga queen of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I mean, she was spectacular. And so the salesperson there says, yeah, we have, here's the, here is, we do this, we do these all the time, so on and so forth. I says, well, can I talk to the nurses that take care of the doctors, that take care of the patients? That's who I want to talk to. And so she let me talk to the nurses station, and I said, so I told her about Amy, I told her about how much I loved her, I told her everybody loves their family member, obviously, that wants to help their family member, and I said, who's the best? And she goes, Dr. DiBernardo. And I go, well, you said that pretty quickly. And I go, who do you work for? She goes, another doctor. I go, really? So you're telling me Dr. DiBernardo is the best? She goes, and you work for this other doctor? Why'd you say that? She said, you asked me a question, I gave you the answer. So I took the list of doctors to Amy. And I said, okay, honey, here's the list. Which one? She's still in bed at the time. This is days later, of course, but she was still recovering. And she says, Robert DiBernardo. Okay, so that's how he became our doctor. He was her doctor for 8.5 years. He now runs that area, the oncology area for that particular what do you call it? GN College? Yeah, you got it, oncology, right? Takes care of this type of cancer. I had a cell phone. He was her friend. He loved her. He probably treated everybody like that. I don't know, maybe we just felt like we were special, but I could text him. She'd text him. If she was scared, she could text him. So it started with a surgery. It was a surgery where they take out all your organs. They find out it's 3C. That means she has a 30% chance of making it 5 years. 30% chance of making it 5 years. So right away, they do that surgery. She has a bowel obstruction right away. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know. They give her chemo. We think, what's the chemo reaction? We didn't know. It's a bowel obstruction. We go to the Ovarian hospital. She has an ambulance. That was the beginning. That was how it started. And I'm not going to say it was like that for 10 years, but if I did say it wouldn't be that big of an exaggeration. That's how much pain she had to go through. That's what she had to go to survive. But you know what? Here's the thing about this. This woman never got bitter. That's why. Ever. How do you not get bitter? How do you not? She was scared a couple of times. She didn't get bitter. 10 years, 14 surgeries. Probably 70% of the time is chemotherapy. You ever know anybody who went through chemotherapy? It's hell. She went through it 70% of 7 years, probably. Ambulance rides. She was in so much pain sometimes that I would be laying next to her and she would be moaning of pain in her sleep. But you know what Amy taught me? One of the most important things Amy taught me about life, about the human spirit. Human spirit wants to live. I don't care what anybody tells you. I'm okay if the human spirit wants to live. So near the end, fast forward to her last year and a few months, and she got in such pain that she was at the Ovarian hospital for a week, and they had her on what they called more opiates than they give a 300-pound man, and still couldn't get her out of pain. They finally just got her stable, and she was tired of staying there, and she says, I got to get out of here. They couldn't get her out of pain. I have to admit, I wanted her to die. But her daughter was an oncology nurse out in Colorado at the time. She was oncology. She ended up going to oncology because of her mother's illness. And she said, well, this doesn't happen at UC Health. Our palliative works directly with our oncology, and we'll get her out of pain. I said, okay, we're going to Denver. So I loaded up the SUV, and the dog, Amy, and 4 boxes, went and stayed at a hotel for 18 days. We got a doctor. We found a place we could stay at, furnished. We stayed there for a while. Then we found some people were going to go on this elaborate vacation. And so we ended up renting their house from them. I could do all this because I can afford to. Most people can't. So it got in her lungs near the end. This is after we were there probably a total of a year. And literally, I thought she was probably, every Christmas I would think, and every New Year's I would think, is this going to be the last Christmas? Never was. And she was never bitter. Ever. She might ask a couple times. She might have said, why me? I said, honey, it's because you're so spectacular. That was a true statement. So it got in her lungs. It just kept multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And finally, she had to be put in the hospital. And she died in a hospital bed. Me holding her hand. Her 3 daughters were there. She loved her daughters so much. We called them the Fab Four, her and her 3 daughters. We're talking about 3 spectacular young ladies doing very well in life. They loved their mom so much. They called her all the time, almost nauseated me. Before she got sick. After she got sick, I was okay with it, right? But before that, I'm like, will you women leave us alone? Can I have my Amy time, please? But she died. It got to a point where she couldn't breathe, and they had her on this machine to keep her alive, and the only thing we could do, it was just going away, pound by pound by pound by pound by pound. I was watching it go away. I mean, she was happy. She was happy, and I go, she's happy, it's time. So we let her go. So I started Amy's Foundation. She didn't know I was going to do it. I decided near the end that I had to honor this woman somehow. But how do you honor somebody this spectacular? I'm still trying to figure that out. So we started Amy's Foundation. Because I wanted to keep her spirit alive. That's the reason I did it. That's the reason I did it. Because I wanted to keep her spirit alive. You know why it's still going? Because she's inside me. She has to be the same me. The same me. This is her. This is her wanting to help people. Because this kind of cancer, they don't see it coming. They just don't see it coming. They don't have any way to see it coming. So I learned from Cleveland Clinic that they were doing a study on early detection of ovarian cancer. Right now, they're doing this study. And I said, that's what we want to put money toward. That's what we want to put money toward, because you got to know, because then they have a chance. But once we started this foundation and we've done the social media posts and we've been seeing everybody respond, I know it's true. I know it's true. And I know the medical profession does not have a way to solve the problem. So there's only one way. You got to catch it early. If you catch it early, you got a chance. When it's centralized into the ovaries, you got a chance to kill it. Once you get outside, it splatters. It's particles. Kill it with chemo. All they do with chemo is they just try to kill a bunch of cells and hoping they get the right ones. Yeah, they get some of the right ones, but they miss a whole bunch of them. And it just sits and waits. And it takes, for somebody that spectacular, it takes 10 years. She had 30% chance of making it 5 years. That's what the statistics are. So I'm sure that we're doing the right thing with Amy's Foundation. Very, 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 Sure. I'd love to hear any questions if you have any.